So in this demo, we're going to go ahead and spin up a ScaleIO environment as well as a Splunk environment using vagrant. Simply issuing the command vagrant up while in the ScaleIO directory will start to spin up some instances, a tiebreaker, an MDM, and an MDM2. While vagrant is downloading the appropriate packages and starting the virtual machines, I will go ahead and do the same for Splunk. Note that the vagrant file for the Splunk install will actually spin up a virtual machine. It installs the ScaleIO client, the SDC, as well as the Splunk binaries, so that Splunk, when the vagrant file is completed, will be installed. As you can see here, it's now instructing me to go to the web interface. So my browser, I will go to what is pre-configured is 168.50.21:8000. Since this is the first time we're logging in here, you'll notice that it does instruct me to use the admin change me, and I'm going to go ahead and skip. This is just a lab environment. So it's that simple. You have Splunk now running, ScaleIO setup is completing, and in just a few moments this will be ready to go as well. The next step will be to connect a volume from ScaleIO to the Splunk server, which we can then use for indexes on the Splunk server. Okay, so at this point Vagrant has completely installed the Splunk virtual machine as well as 3 virtual machines for ScaleIO. The ScaleIO setup is complete, so we have a tiebreaker, an MDM, and MDM2. All 3 are running as SDC and SDS, meaning they are the server function for the disks as well as the client. The SDC is also installed on the Splunk server, so it can be a client as well. Let's go ahead and open up the ScaleIO GUI. Enter in the IP address of the primary MDM, which should be 50.12. And the password for this is ScaleIO with a capital S, lowercase io. So capital S, lowercase CALEIO, 123. And when we click connect, it's going to prompt us and ask us to confirm the certificate. Now once I confirm the certificate, the ScaleIO GUI will appear. So just like that, I've got ScaleIO and Splunk running side by side. So now let's do something interesting. We want to go ahead and check out the SDCs that I have. As you can see, I have 4 of them. Now remember, the Splunk server, as we can see in the background, is .21, so I can see that that is already configured, as well as the 3 SDCs in the ScaleIO cluster. So at this point, it's as simple as going to the Volumes tab, and I can right-click on the pool, and I'm going to go ahead and call this my Splunk Volume 1. Alright. ScaleIO automatically rounds the volumes to increments of 8 gigabytes, so let's just start out with 8 for now. And I'm going to say thin provisioned because I'm running this in a virtual environment. Let's go ahead and check use RAM read cache. This is indicating that I don't have this enabled for the storage pool, so I'll do that later. Go ahead and click OK, proceed, and close. Now I have a volume. I need to map that volume out to my Splunk server. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on the volume and I'm going to say map volume. Now I only want this volume to be available to my Splunk server, but if I had some kind of clustered file system that I was running on top of these clients, I could absolutely attach this volume to multiple clients. Again, I'm just going to map it out to my Splunk server, click map volumes, close, and it's that simple. I've created a volume, now I can log in and actually see that volume within Splunk. Next, I'm going to go over to the terminal and SSH into the Splunk server. I could do this by browsing to the vagrant Splunk directory and typing the command vagrant SSH. Vagrant will automatically connect me to the one and only server that's defined in this particular vagrant file. If I was going to issue a similar command with ScaleIO, I would need to call out one of the node names. So MDM1, tiebreaker, MDM2. And we can run an fdisk command here. And you'll see that I have a device, a ScaleIO device that's visible within my Splunk server. Now if I go over to my ScaleIO GUI and right click on here and say unmap volume, I'll get this window. If I say unmap volumes right here, it says that it's done. I can go back over here and notice that device is no longer present. So it's that easy to map and remove volumes. I can even create a snapshot here if I wanted to. Splunk snap. And just as easily, I'm able to map that out to the Splunk server or any of the other clients if I wanted to for test and development purposes. So very flexible, very easy to manipulate volumes, to map them out to hosts. I want to go ahead and take this, map it back out to my Splunk server so we can leverage this for an index. And once again, I'll run the command and I see that that device is there. So next I want to do what I normally would, which is to put a file system on here. And now that I've got a file system on that device, I'm going to mount that to, so first create a path. I'll call it SIO index. And then I'll mount it to that path. Excellent. So now I should be able to browse over, and obviously there's nothing here at this point, but now I've mounted up a volume within my Splunk Linux server. I can simply go over to Splunk now and set up my indexes. So log into Splunk, click on the settings drop down, go to indexes. Here I can say new index. And we'll call this my ScaleIO index. Go ahead and make a new directory in here. We'll call this DB. And we'll call another one cold DB. One for our home path and one for our cold path. So DB and cold DB. We're going to say 8 here because we only have 8 available in this particular volume. Now I've got a ScaleIO index. So basically a volume that was created in ScaleIO presented to Splunk. Any particular data sets that I want, I can choose to point to this index that exists in ScaleIO. So now that I've set up a new index within Splunk, let's go ahead and actually add some data into Splunk into that index. Click Add Data in the main window. And I want to monitor. And I'm going to say TCP UDP. We'll do 514. And here I'm going to select syslog. So type in syslog. I choose syslog as the source type. I can leave search and reporting as my app context, and go ahead and leave the host set for DNS. You can always change it to IP if you want. And now I simply go into index and choose my ScaleIO index that I just created. I could always go ahead and create another one as well. my review screen, I see that I've got port 514, which is the default for syslog, and I'm going to use TCP. So I'll go ahead and submit that. Great, that was easy. Now let's create another one for UDP. Go ahead and say monitor, TCP UDP. Choose syslog. Once again, my ScaleIO index. All right, so now I have a UDP and a TCP set up for syslog, so I can receive syslog events. Now in my case, if I come back to the main Splunk window and I click on search, I'm going to go ahead and say skip the tour. And I can say index equals, and you'll see ScaleIO index. This is simply going to search the Splunk server for any data that resides in that ScaleIO index. Now, in my case, I already had my laptop sending its logging data out to the syslog port on the Splunk server. So I already have events in here. If you want, you can go over to the Splunk server and actually browse here. So I can see if I go to database, I actually have some data in here. I presented a volume to the Splunk server, I set up an index, and I have some syslog data being sent to the Splunk server and stored in that ScaleIO volume. Now I have some syslog events being sent from my laptop, but perhaps you want to actually send syslog data from ScaleIO. It's quite simple to do that. I'm just going to go ahead and log into the MDM by issuing the command vagrant ssh mdm1. And from within here, I simply issue the command scli login user name admin password. You can leave out the password and enter it manually, or you can enter it right here. It's going to ask to approve the certificate, which is a new feature of ScaleIO 2.0. So I'm going to say yes. I'm now logged in. I can issue the command to actually start the remote syslog on the ScaleIO server. And it looks like this. Excellent. So now syslog data is being sent to the Splunk server. If I perform any tasks like create volumes, for example, so let's go over here and just create a new volume. We'll call it test vol 1. So I created a volume that should send an event over to my Splunk server. Notice here I have a new host, and that happens to be my ScaleIO server. How convenient. This is a great way to see how we can actually collect data from our ScaleIO server. So we can see events like add volume from what user and track all of that right within Splunk.